Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Tea and Overtones. And today we're going to feature Dragonwell tea. I was just looking for the packet here and just to show you, it's from Silk Road Teas. It's called Dragonwell. It's a green tea and it's also known as Longjing. You'll find it, Longjing, Longjing. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about what's going on and how we can navigate the times. And one of the keys to me is a poem by Walt Whitman, which I'm going to be sharing with you as we go along here. So you'll also notice that I have an array of teapots, and I want to talk a little bit about that as well. But let's go straight into Walt Whitman, because I think this is so important. I'm recording this on a Sunday. It was a weekend that Los Angeles was going to open up the stores and the shops again, and it was kind of a significant weekend in terms of this cycle or this arc of the pandemic we're in. And instead, it's been a period of the National Guard has been called out. There's been fires, protesting, looting, curfew. And it's just like, my goodness, what is being unleashed here? So I turned to Walt Whitman, who wrote a poem called To Him That Was Crucified. So clearly he's talking to Jesus Christ, and he's writing it, and he's calling him my comrade, and he's talking to him as, in many ways, as an equal, saying that there's certain people in this world who he can obviously considers himself one of them, and of course Jesus Christ, that can walk through this world in a different way, almost in a transcendent state. It's well worth checking out this poem, which is part of Leaves of Grass, but I wanted to read you just a small segment of that. Again, he's speaking about how they have really, well, let me just see if I can find here where he talks. He says, he starts by saying, my spirit to yours, dear brother. And then he kind of goes on to say, we few equals, indifferent of lands, indifferent of times. And kind of setting up the piece that I'm going to read you. He says, we enclosers of all continents, all castes, allowers of all theology. So he's talking about a big thing here. It's interesting that a dove has just landed on the windowsill. It's the first time actually that's happened in one of these kind of videos, and certainly one of the first times I've actually seen one land there. So I'm taking that as a positive sign. So we enclosers of all continents, of castes, allowers of all theologies. And then he goes on to say, we walk silent among disputes and assertions, but reject not the disputers, nor anything that is asserted. We hear the bawling and din. We are reached at by divisions, jealousies, recriminations on every side. They close peremptorily upon us to surround us, my comrade. Yet we walk unheld, free, the whole earth over. And when I read that, every time it kind of settles down all my concerns, because it's just saying in many ways that this has always been going on, but there's a certain group of people that can hold the peace because they're not in any kind of judgment. They recognize it. They, in a sense, send love to it. Early on in the poem, he calls himself compassionators, perceivers, rapport of men. Sees himself as someone who's loving, and he certainly demonstrated that. Walt Whitman, he was a nurse in the Civil War too, and really assisted so many people who were brutally injured. So he's certainly seen tough times and known them and been able to transcend them. And this is what he's telling us here. Again, let me read you it because it's so important. We walk silent among disputes and assertions, but reject not the disputers, nor anything that is asserted. We hear the bawling and din. We are reached at by divisions, jealousies, recriminations on every side. They close peremptorily upon us to surround us, my comrade. Yet we walk unheld, free, the whole earth over. So I'm hoping that is as meaningful to you as it is to me, or it has meaning for you, because it can lead us into a path of neutrality, of just leaning back, things that we've talked about, just leaning back, allowing a little bit of space to realize this is playing out, and we can be in a good place of not taking sides, not judging the action, but to be free inside of us. And so with that, we'll drink a cup of tea. And I've measured out my leaves. One characteristic of Long Jing is, or Dragon Well, is it's flat. It's kind of flat leaves. Sometimes leaves are rounded. This is very flat because of the way that it was processed and it's roasted. It's a green tea, as I've mentioned, and it's one of the most popular teas in China. In fact, the last session, I think we did sencha, which is one of the most popular green teas in Japan. Sencha is not as processed. It's kind of plucked early. There's not as oxidized. This is a little bit more done. Certainly, sencha is not roasted, but this is tossed in a wok, and probably one of my favorite teas. You're probably saying, well, why haven't I brought it out earlier on? It's because, sometimes you like to save the best for later. So I measured out about 4 grams, which is, I am in my little weighing machine. I'll save you the agony of watching me weigh it all out. And probably I can get 3 or 4 steepings out of this. It has a very distinctive taste, very vegetal. A good quality Longjing, a good quality will kind of have a lot of flavor notes, the nuttiness. And my favorite is when it finishes off with a sweetness. That's what I love about a good quality tea, is the sweetness that it ends up with. So the flavor goes through many, many iterations. And that's the good thing about a good quality tea. This Longjing, this Dragon Well, there's many gradations of it. The first grade, second grade, there's competition grade. This one is organic and it's a first grade tea. So that means it's a little bit more expensive. So a little treat to myself. Sometimes a birthday treat for me is a good tea where I can just be a little bit more extensive. The dove is still on the windowsill, by the way. So I enjoy a good quality tea. We don't have to let it steep too long for the first time around. And I'm just pouring it into this holding container here so that the tea doesn't stew. In English we say stew. It doesn't stew, but in American, stew. So we'll just hold it there for a moment. Now notice that I kind of brewed it in this glass cup and glass teapot, which I like, and it's got its own filter built in. It's always no embarrassment bringing your own filter with you. With the sencha, the leaves were a lot smaller, so I actually, just had an extra tea strainer to filter out the little bits and pieces. But these are bigger leaves. But there's other teapots. For example, these are iron teapots, and quite beautiful. They're lined inside. They're from Japan. This one has a kind of a bamboo design, and certainly I could brew it in here without any problem whatsoever, and would be quite beautiful. And here's another iteration of that, another iron teapot with a different. This one has a dragonfly emblem on it. Again, quite beautiful. Again, lined inside, and very, very, very nice. This is a different thing altogether. This is a Chinese clay pot. And here you'll see that it's not lined at all, and it's made out of a very special clay, there's a special name for this pot, which escapes me right now. I'm not quite an expert on them. They can run, something like this can run anything from a couple of $100 to, $1,000, $1,500. I've seen them, depending on the artist and the quality and the usual things that make things cost. I got it on Amazon for about, I think, $35 or something like that, which it does make you a little suspicious about what it actually is made from. I haven't used it yet. I'm going to boil it. I'm going to actually boil this to make sure that any impurities are just flushed out of it. And then I'm going to use it. But and the reason for this kind of teapot is you want to only have it for one type of tea, because unlike a glass teapot, this one will absorb the actual aroma and the aroma, the tea leaf, the whole experience. So you stick with one tea, perhaps an oolong, a specialty, and then this teapot is for that tea only. And then you don't wash it with soap and water, you just wash it with water. And as always, don't put these things in washing machines. So it's a very special cup. I don't know if I got a bargain or I was kind of conned, but I do like the shape. It's a very traditional shape, and it does feel very, very good to me. And I did do quite a bit of research on it, but I wasn't willing to spend too much money on it. But and these other ones are gifts from many years ago. They last a lifetime, these iron pots. The whole point here is that we can contemplate a beautiful piece of poetry like we just saw from Whitman. We walk silent among disputes and assertions. And just contemplate it while we drink our tea. And just the pleasure of some fresh flowers from the backyard that just really assist the moment and take a moment to really take in their beauty. The tea itself, its aroma, very, very distinctive aroma for Longjing. And then a very special teacup. As you can tell, very unusual color, pink color. It's got a nice darker interior, smoother interior. It's actually smooth on the outside too. Again, something that I bought in Los Angeles in a ceramic shop that I appreciate, that has a kind of a Zen kind of aesthetic to it. Not all their pieces, but some of them. And again, part of the pleasure of just taking a moment to pause. We walk unheld, free, the whole earth over. I mean, this poem, it's just extraordinary. Of course, we send the light to the situation. We ask that the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source surround and fill the protesters, the looters, the police, the National Guard, the situation, all for the highest good. So we're not taking sides. We're not saying this person's right or this person's wrong, because, as we know, it kind of doesn't go anywhere. But putting out a peaceful vibration, I think, is very helpful in these times. And it's certainly helpful for our health. I think getting caught up in the whole business is not helpful, particularly if we're not doing anything. But holding a peaceful countenance, able to maybe transcend the moment and appreciate the moment, taking a pause for a cup of tea and appreciating life, appreciating all that we're grateful for. It's easy to bemoan the world that we're living in, but that's not the idea here. The idea is to really be accepting and loving, to be transcendent in our attitude, to help the people that are in our environment, people in need of perhaps counseling or talking to, or just a little support and encouragement. These are the things that we can all do. Remember, take the time to taste the tea. And if it doesn't taste right to you, then just take note of perhaps you oversteeped it, or maybe the water wasn't hot enough, perhaps there wasn't the right amount of tea, or perhaps you don't really enjoy the tea. I think one of the things for me is that to really enjoy the moment, and that's why have confidence in the tea that you're brewing. Enjoy the creative process. Every tea is different. I mean, this is the thing. With peak tea, every cup of tea is the same. I mean, you don't have to worry about anything. You just pour in the tea crystals and pour in the hot water, and boom, there you are. But with leaves, they have their characteristics, the water, the boiling time, all of those things. But again, instead of grasping, we lean back, we create the space, and we move through the space. Ma o toru. We move through the space. We give things their space. This is a huge, huge, huge benefit, and in many ways puts us ahead of the game, not in terms of competition, but in terms of our ability to respond instead of reacting. There's a huge difference in that. So be well, and thank you. Baby Special.